I'm on my way to my Father, but I will return.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and I do bear witness that Muhammad is his messenger. Assalamu alaikum. I am Karriem Allah, and I'm directly from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who sits on the throne of universal power and dominion. Thank you for taking time to view this very critically important message. When I say that I am directly from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that means that the message that I bring to you is directly from him. My duty is not to convince you to believe me or to believe in me. My duty is a clear delivery of the message. So I take great care, out of respect for you, in preparing these messages. In the Holy Quran, in Surah or chapter 26, Allah instructs his Messiah. So call not upon another God with Allah, lest thou be of those who are chastised, and warn thy nearest relations, and lower thy wing to the believers who follow thee. But if they disobey thee, say, I am clear of what you do, and rely on the Mighty, the Merciful. Now let us continue with the subject of the crucifixion of the Messiah, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, in an effort to beat or evade or avert the fulfillment of several scenes in the prophetic Gospels of the New Testament. Before beginning, let us cover 3 specific points regarding the nature of the scriptures. First, the original people are the owners of the scriptures, which contain laws and prophecies. However, the Caucasian people, religious leaders, having access to the divine scriptures from the prophets sent to them, defile the scriptures to cause confusion among the people. And this specifically applies to the Bible. Therefore, Allah comes in the last days to give the true meaning of his revealed word. And this is what we are witnessing today with the revelation from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and now myself. Second, biblical historians and archaeologists commonly agree that there is no substantive proof that any of the narratives in the Bible are actual history. Now you can research this for yourself. So in dealing with the fulfillment of the prophecies, we are focused on the actualization of specific scenes instead of a sequential storyline or chronology that you will find in a historical account. Lastly, a fulfilled scene, that is the scene, the prophetic scene in the Gospels. The fulfillment of that may not necessarily denote a one-time epic event, but its fulfillment may span many years. As I said in my first message of this series, the crucifixion of the Messiah has been underway for the last 40 years. However, specific scenes are actualized along this journey. Now let us revisit the Gospel of Matthew. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 26, now Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane. After the Last Supper, he takes some of his disciples with him. He's in the garden, and again, he's laboring, and I would say something of a grief, but he's praying. And then Judas, who had already struck a deal with the chief priests, comes with a band of a group of people, the chief priests, the scribes, and other people with swords and staffs, and they come to apprehend Jesus. While they're taking custody of Jesus, one of the disciples who were with him takes a sword and strikes it at one of the guards of the chief priests and cuts off the person's ear. This has meaning that we won't go into at this point. But now let us pick up on verse 53. Jesus states, "Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? But how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled, that thus it must be?" Now, according to some military dictionaries, a legion is 6,000 soldiers. That's quite a bit. This meant that the Father could ideally send 72,000 angels to aid Jesus. What does this tell us? Among many things, it tells us that there's a much, much bigger picture involved than most of us can fathom. These angels do not need swords. What I have learned is that they can disarm or kill a person with a simple thought. So let's continue. "In that same hour, said Jesus to the multitudes, those who came to apprehend him, Are ye come out as against a thief with swords and staffs, for to take me? I sat daily with you teaching in the temple, and ye laid no hold on me. But all this was done that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled. Then all the disciples forsook him and fled." Now, the notion that all of those who claim to believe and follow the Honorable Louis Farrakhan will forsake him is quite daunting, because forsake is a big word. It means to quit or leave entirely, to abandon, desert, and even to renounce. And this is what all the disciples did. Well, what caused the people, including the disciples, to change their view of Jesus from that of applauding him to now cursing him? The only thing that can change the way we view anything is additional or new knowledge about that thing. Therefore, the people came into a knowledge or information that interfered with their initial perception of Jesus and that he was a good man. Well, who gave the people this new information? In the Gospel of Mark, it states, "And the chief priests and the scribes sought how they might take Jesus by craft and put him to death." Now, in the actualization of this, the U.S. government has used various ploys to apprehend those it disliked by craft, such as false charges against them of sedition, which is perhaps what they were trying to do with the Honorable Louis Farrakhan in lying that he chanted death to America. They also have ploys to falsely convict or charge people of murder, tax evasion, mail fraud, as they did, I believe, with Marcus Garvey, and rape, as they did with a few celebrities. Let us continue. Now, while in custody of the authorities, Jesus is questioned, persecuted, and humiliated. Again, the disciples are watching from afar, along with some of the women of the faith. Now, this is a critical part that we're going to cover, because I need to parse these verses for you. We're dealing with Matthew 27. "Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. And they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. And when they had plaited a crown of thorns, they had put it on his head, and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. And they spit upon him and took the reed and smote him in the head. And after that they mocked him. They took the robe from him and put his own raiment on him and led him away to crucify him. Now, the Gospel of Mark has this account. It's stated slightly different, but it's the same elements. And the soldiers led him away into the hall called Praetorium, and they called together the whole band, and they clothed him with purple and plaited a crown of thorns and put it about his head, and began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews." And they smote him on the head with a reed and did spit upon him, and bowing their knees worshiped him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple from him and put his own clothes on him and led him out to crucify him. Now, this scene generally is filled with a deliberate or orchestrated scandal and drama, which is orchestrated by the Synagogue of Satan, in this case, the chief priests and the scribes and the leaders of those who are against Jesus. So we're going to parse these scenes, or the verses of this scene. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. Well, the common hall or praetorium means that Jesus is taken into court. This includes the court of law, but more importantly, it includes the court of public opinion, where the notorious mass media crucifies those it dislikes and hates. The scribes who show up at the Garden of Gethsemane, they represent the mass news media. Continuing. And they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. Now, stripping Jesus of his raiment and putting a scarlet robe on him has to do with two classes of women, believers and disbelievers. I think you should listen to this. In Surah 2, verse 187, Allah refers to the intimacy between a man and a woman as apparel. And they are an apparel for you, and you are an apparel for them. Now, apparel is clothing, especially outerwear, garments, attire, and raiment, or anything that decorates or covers. The elevation of women serves as proof of the Messiah's divinity and of his respect for women, to say the least. This, in part, is how he's covered. How then can anyone accuse the Honorable Louis Farrakhan of being a misogynist or a hater of women with the M.G.T, Muslim girls training, displaying the highest levels of decent, civil, and righteous behaviors? Well, they can't, unless they make the M.G.T appear to be worldly and secret. This is how the Messiah is stripped of his raiment. They strip the M.G.T of the persona of righteousness. Therefore, the Synagogue of Satan, in its mass media blitz, intends to portray the M.G.T as unscrupulous, lesbians, promiscuous, and even lovers of white men. How can the satanic leaders do this? Well, they have tracked the activities of some M.G.T because government agents have infiltrated the Nation of Islam to seduce weaker members into partaking of unrighteous behavior. Now, let me just say this. Being in the Nation of Islam does not mean we are righteous. It does not mean that we are without faults or bad habits from the world of sin that we come out of. What it means is that we are in the process of purification. It means further that we have dedicated our lives to helping Allah in the Messiah. Now let's deal with the other class of women, the disbelievers. This is the scarlet robe that is placed on the Messiah. The colors of scarlet and purple. Purple is mentioned in Mark. Both are mentioned in the book of Revelation, chapter 17. And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. This is John the Revelator getting a vision from one of the 7 angels mentioned in the book of Revelations. Continuing, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have made drunk with wine, with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abomination of filthiness for her fornication. Such women belong to the beast or dragon. In other words, they have been made to hate righteousness and despise Allah's Messiah. Therefore, the satanic leaders use women to cover Jesus with scandal by inventing lies about him and fomenting hatred against the Messiah in the Nation of Islam. Now, as I said several years ago, the face of the news media are women who do most of the news reporting. And this is why we have a news environment, or so-called news environment, filled with gossip, slander, and innuendo. Let's move on. In Matthew, again dealing with this scene, verse 29 states, And when they had plaited a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head. Well, to plait something involves twisting it. They are the satanic leaders through whom covert planting of agents, they have planted, agents in the ranks of the fruit of Islam in particular, to cause unrighteous, even criminal behavior. Again, they plaited this crown with thorns. So the struggle to overcome the unrighteous behaviors, this includes the struggle to overcome the unrighteous behaviors resulting from the world of Satan. So what are you saying? Well, you have government agents who lead the weaker ones into criminal activity, unrighteous behavior, while being members of the Nation of Islam, registered. You also have just weakness in us of coming out of that kind of behavior. So all of these things work to place on the mind of the Messiah a crown of thorns. And this has not been a one-time epic event. This has been going on for quite some time. Satan has been at work in this manner for many years. Moving on. It states, and they smote him with the head on the head with a reed, and did spit upon him, meaning Jesus. This refers to the satanic leaders' attack on the Messiah's doctrine, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. The reed represents the staff. It's a straight and horizontal or a vertical staff. And it stands for strength and might, but it also stands on what that person leans upon. It supports him. This is the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So smoting him on the head with the reed may involve so-called Muslims and Christians of various sects launching venomous attacks against the Honorable Louis Farrakhan in the Nation of Islam. They intend to challenge the fundamental beliefs of the Nation of Islam. They will attack the existence of Master Fard Muhammad and the existence of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You can expect that one. They did spit upon him. This means vehement hatred with the intent to disgrace. The satanic leaders and the people will spew. Spit comes up from deep within and out. So people are harboring ill feelings and vehement hatred for the Honorable Louis Farrakhan in the Nation of Islam as we walk and breathe. And many of these people pretend to be friends of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. And many of you are also quick to say, oh, he's with the minister. Really, we'll see. Now, they lead Jesus to be crucified after they do all this. Continuing, and after they had mocked him, the M.G.T, the F.O.I, his doctrine, our striving to be righteous, and made us look like just a cult that's crazy as hell, just to put it simple. Then they take the robe off from him and put on his own raiment and lead him away to be crucified. So now Jesus, the scarlet robe comes off, meaning the attack of the women who represent Satan's world. And now they put back on the sisterhood after they have made the M.G.T to be a disgrace in the eyes of the people. And that with the thorns, meaning the F.O.I, the crown of thorns, they lead him and all of us to be crucified. Now, all of this, of what the satanic leaders intend to do, is why in the Gospel of John, it states, they shall put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God a service. This is Jesus talking to the disciples. Again, letting them know what is in store for them. Now, in Surah 4 of the Holy Quran, Allah states, whoever does evil will be requited for it and will not find for himself besides Allah a friend or a helper. And whoever does good deeds, whether male or female, and he or she is a believer, these will enter the garden and they will not be dealt with a whit unjustly. Now, I won't bother with calling the roll on the litany of sins that all of us have been exposed to in this world of Satan and have committed. Many of these sins we still are dealing with. In the Holy Quran, in Surah 35, it states, if Allah were to punish men according to what they deserve, he would not leave on the back of the earth a single living creature. Now, this is distinctly clear. However, there are those laden with self-righteousness who will choose to act foolishly by attacking the Nation of Islam. Now, such persons might think they have free rein to harm and kill members of the Nation of Islam. But I warn you, again from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that you will be planning your own bloodbath. Your fate has already been sealed, and Allah will strike speedily and thoroughly on any effort by any nation on earth made to harm members of the Nation of Islam. May Allah continue to bless you and your families. Assalamu alaikum.